Hello and welcome to today's web seminar, Leveraging Lean Thinking in Credit Unions, a Randolph Brooks Federal Credit Union case study brought to you by Guidon Performance Solutions and Randolph Brooks Federal Credit Union. I'm Melissa Sopwith from Guidon and I'll be your moderator today. We have a few housekeeping announcements before we begin. First, there will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, and you can participate in the Q&A session by asking questions at any time during the presentation. Just type your question into the Ask a Question text area in the bottom corner of your screen and then hit the Submit button. We will collect questions throughout the presentation, and our presenters will attempt to answer as many as possible. You can also enlarge the slide window at any time by clicking on the Enlarge Slide button located below the presentation window. The slides will advance automatically throughout the event. If you experience any problems at all throughout the program, please press the F5 button on your keyboard or close your window and relaunch the presentation using the other media player. You can also visit the webcast help guide by clicking on the Help button below the slide window. Now on to the presentation. Leading today's discussion is Peter Farrow from Randolph Brooks Federal Credit Union. Peter is Vice President and Chief Information Officer. He joined Randolph Brooks in 2004 to establish a formal project management function. And in 2007, Peter was selected to create a formal process improvement program for the credit union. Peter has over 18 years' experience in credit unions and has a master's in technology and a master's of business administration. Now on to the presentation. Peter will start first with an overview and an introduction of Randolph Brooks Federal Credit Union, and then he'll cover some basics of Lean. Next, he's going to discuss some of the reasons Randolph Brooks considered Lean and ways Lean can be beneficial to any credit union. Peter will present you with 3 detailed case studies from Randolph Brooks: branch channel lending, call center member service, and branch workforce management, and he will share with you some of the results they achieved. Next, he will give an overview of Lean in IT and a few reasons Randolph Brooks is also implementing Lean in IT. And lastly, Peter will share with you some helpful tips for getting started with your own improvement initiatives. Peter, I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you, Melissa. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on your time zone. I know it's 12 o'clock somewhere. Again, my name is Peter Farrow, as Melissa just introduced me. I have been with Randolph Brooks since '04, as mentioned. And what I'd like to do is give you a little general overview of Randolph Brooks Federal Credit Union. Like most credit unions, we were started off by a single SEG or select employee group. And for us, that was military personnel, specifically Air Force, back in 1952. Since then, we've come a long way. We're over $4 billion now in assets. We serve more than 325,000 members. And our growth, or our area that we serve, is primarily in Texas. And we have 36 branches that span north of Austin to south of San Antonio. We also encompass 10 underserved areas, and credit unions, again, we're either field of membership or we're select employee group based. We have about 2,600 of different segs and different ways of being able to join the credit union. We're very fortunate. Recently, we've been experiencing some pretty significant growth, and as such, we've been adding 3 to 5 new branches almost every 12 to 14 months, including also adding branches in schools as part of a financial education and training system. Currently, we're at about 1,000-plus employees. We're very fortunate that the average tenure of our staff, especially our senior staff, is about 15-plus years. And then 5 or more years of service across the credit union is about 40% or more of our employees. And currently part-time, and I say currently because there are several projects that are currently examining the full-time to part-time or flexible time employee relationship. We have about 10% of our staff is actually part-time. So what is Lean? Well, for us in the credit union industry, it's about our members. It's what the member wants, where the member wants it, when they want it, and more specifically in the manner they want it. And by that I mean, consistently high levels of member service. It's obviously key in today's business world that we leverage everything to its fullest, which obviously includes our resources as one of our most expensive assets. The important thing to remember about Lean is that it's specifying value from the standpoint of the member or the customer, and I'll get into a little bit more detail exactly what that means. Okay, so moving on to the next slide, why Lean in credit unions. For us, we are fortunate, as I mentioned before, that we are experiencing some rapid growth, and confidence and safety from our members' perspective is critical. Also that our members expect superior service, which is one of the things that we have built our foundation on at Randolph Brooks. And as we continue to offer different products and services, the complexity and the scale of those products and services has also increased. That, and obviously I don't need to tell everybody, the regulatory environment that we're currently in is becoming much, much more complex, and it's forcing us to examine our processes to make sure that they are as efficient and or as sound as possible, and that there's the appropriate controls and cost measures in place. At this particular time, return on assets for many credit unions or financial institutions is extremely stretched thin, and obviously with low interest rates and more members and more services, it requires that we find the most efficient way of doing everything that we attempt. Lean is all about identifying and eliminating waste. And in Lean Sigma, there's basically 7 formal areas that we focus on. On the right-hand side there, you can see things such as overproducing, excess motion, waiting, errors and rework. Normally, these have been traditionally thought of as being manufacturing-type environments, but this, as I'm going to show you as we go through this presentation, does apply to the financial services and or the business process side just as equally as it does the manufacturing floor. Or it's being a work in progress, or it's being transported from one point to another, or it's waiting somewhere to be worked on by somebody, or, in the case of errors or mistakes, it's something that has to be reworked and corrected. In lean thinking, the term actually refers to not the actual physical material, but rather the relationship of the resource or the process to the member itself, or to our member itself. And is measured as a waste of consumption in resources, which equals time and capital. Typical examples of waste in credit unions are members waiting for a service. We all have lobbies, we all have lines, or members waiting in line. That's a form or example of waste. Cumbersome transactions, duplication of information. It may be stored in one or more places, or we may duplicate or triplicate certain forms. Searching for information to answer a question, centralized source or repository for data. This is one that's usually, relatively common across the board, getting reports that are generated on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, but then they're not actually used. Transportation costs. I'll show you in some of the more detailed examples. There's a lot of movement of material which constitutes waste. And then file maintenance and retention, which I'll touch on a little bit when I get into the IT area. But basically it boils down to, it's about the core member value, how the member values or the member perceives the process. So lean improvement. When we started our relationship with Guidon, which was approximately 2 or 3 years ago, and they started teaching us about lean and how to integrate it into our processes on a daily basis, they shared with us some of the potential benchmark gains or savings that can be seen by using Lean Sigma and lean processing. I won't go over this slide in detail, but basically across the board here, from labor capacity, reduction in handoffs, the amount of errors and rework that can occur because of bad processes, we've pretty much seen the gains and the results that have been outlined here. So lean projects at Randolph Brooks Federal Credit Union. Over the last 3 years, we have probably held several dozen formal process improvement events, as well as reviewed more than 750, 800 individual processes. And when I say events, these are usually large, detailed processes that we formulate a team to actually address, and we attempt to do this within about a 5-day working period. Now I'm going to provide a little bit more detail into those events a few slides later. Some of these that I'm going to talk about today include member service. I'm also going to touch on one that we did in consumer lending. And then I'll end with our resource planning model project that we are currently in the process of implementing. Some of the other ones that we have addressed is human resources recruitment, our records and research area where we image about 8.5 million documents a year, information systems, help desk tickets, member services, asset protection, and then something that's referred to as 5S, which is a tool that is used as part of the Lean Sigma process that looks at standardizing a workplace for many reasons, not only including efficiency, but also safety, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. And our most recent project, the Core Platform Process Review, which, again, I'll explain in a little bit more detail. Several slides ago, you heard me mention a one-week event. a one-week event is referred to as a Kaizen. A Kaizen basically is